the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Good evening. Welcome to the National News broadcast brought to you live from the National News Studios here at the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation. My name is Dushan Virakon together with Sharifa Tahir. Two cabinet ministers and one state minister take their oaths. 5 petitions against transferring of Yugadanavi power plant shares dismissed. Russian forces seize Europe's biggest nuclear power plant. The president instructs 2 state banks to issue loans to purchase Paddy. Severe economic difficulties occur due to the global price increase of oil. Now, 2 cabinet ministers and 1 state minister took their oaths before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa this afternoon at the Presidential Secretariat under the amendments to the ministries. Now, Arundhika Fernando, who resigned from his post, took oaths again as a state minister. C.B. Ratnayaka was sworn in as the Minister of Wildlife and Wildlife Conservation. Awanagama has been appointed as the Minister of Transport. Vimalveera Dissanayake took oaths as the State Minister of Disaster Management before the President. Arundhika Fernando was appointed again as the State Minister for Coconut, Kithul and Palmyra Promotion and related industrial goods production and export diversification. Meanwhile, 3 new ministers were appointed by the President yesterday. Gamini Lokuge took oaths as the Minister of Energy yesterday before the President. Pavitra Wanyarachi was sworn in as the Minister of Power. Parliamentarian S.B. Dissanayake has been appointed as the Minister of Industries. Meanwhile, Pavitra Wanyarachi, who took oaths yesterday as the Minister of Power, assumed duties this morning at the ministry in Colombo.
We continue with more local news updates. The Supreme Court decided today to dismiss without considering 5 fundamental rights petitions filed requesting to nullify a cabinet decision to transfer 40% of government shares of the Kerawalapitiya Yugadanavi plant to an American company. The unanimous decision was given by a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court, including Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya.
Announcing the judgment, Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya said that the court decided not to issue notices on respondents to hear the petitions. The petitioners had requested the Supreme Court for an order declaring that the decision to transfer the shares has violated the fundamental rights of the people. They had also sought an order seeking to nullify the cabinet order to transfer government shares of the Yugadanavi power plant. Well, now the ongoing situation in Russia and Ukraine has been escalating in rapid proportions. Now, as always, to talk regarding the situation on the ground, let's move over to our foreign analyst, senior journalist, Mr. Prasad Durangodige. Welcome, Prasad. Well, Prasad, moving on into the current situation in Ukraine, we have seen incidents where Russia itself has invaded the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. So, what's the current situation on the ground as of that?
Yes, Dishan. On the 9th day of this war, we saw the world was on the brink of major or severe catastrophic nuclear disaster. However, it was just averted. Russians, last night, there was a fight between Russians and Ukrainians for the control of the largest power plant in Europe. It's situated 550 kilometers southeast of capital Kiev, and ultimately, the Russians got the control of the power plant, but at that time there was a fire broke out in the vicinity of the power plant. Russians say they were successfully put out the fire and secured the nuclear reactor. However, Western nations highly criticized Russian actions, saying that was a very reckless act, launching a military operation targeting a vast nuclear power plant which has capacity of 6,000 megawatts. And elsewhere we saw fighting are continuing in southern Ukraine. Russians are trying so hard to capture the port city of Mariupol, and relief workers say there is a major humanitarian catastrophe because an unknown number of civilians are trapped between the two fighting forces. So, Russians want to cut Ukrainians from reaching the southern Black Sea coast, because Russians are trying to capture the whole southern Black Sea coastal area, and their aim is to push Ukrainians into more landlocked areas during this offensive. Now, Russians, they are expanding their territories in Ukraine from the northern area. They are fighting in near capital Kiev, and the second largest city Kharkiv is also under severe Russian attack, and heavy bombardments are going in many northern cities. However, Russians were only managed to capture one major city. Yesterday they captured one major city, that's all. There were no major breakthroughs from the Russian side. Now, while this war is going on, we could see the sanctions and very severe economic hardship, and we discussed about the measures taken by the Western world to address this situation, to punish Russia for invading Ukraine. Now, in BBC there is a report about the Ukraine war is economic catastrophe, warns World Bank. World Bank President David Malpass says that war in Ukraine is a catastrophe for the whole world, not only for Russia, not only for Ukraine, not only for Europe, but for the whole world. He mentioned there are specific areas could be affected, especially the food production and the food market. Now, even today we saw the wheat market, world wheat market became volatile because about 28% of the wheat market, the Russia and Ukraine altogether supply 28% of wheat to the world market, and there's a tendency of price hike of wheat in the world market. And also similar situation reported in the world's sunflower oil market, because these two countries produce more than 60% of global global sunflower production. 60% belong to these countries. So the sunflower oil market is also in a very volatile situation. And today we saw the price hikes of aluminium and copper and several other metal products, so due to this war. And the global energy crisis is looming. The crude oil prices of crude oil, we saw today even the price of a barrel of crude oil, Brent benchmark, it was near 115 US dollar mark. So this is the situation, Dishan. Now we can see this whole crisis, it's not it has not an impact on these two countries or the Europe, but we are also going to suffer due to this situation. That's what we see from the statement of this World Bank president.
Yes, Mr. Prasad, as in terms of economically, like you mentioned, it is a severe impact on the global economy as a whole. But as we all know, the actions taken by Russia itself cannot be let go of. And as you mentioned, there were sanctions imposed. Now, as we were looking at incidents, we saw that Russian oligarchs themselves were targeted by international agencies.
Of course, now there's an international operation going on to capture the wealth of wealthy Russians, the tycoons, because according to the Forbes list, more than maybe 120 big billionaires, multi-billionaires are in Russia. They are Russians. So their wealth, they have their wealth all over the world. Now the Western sanctions have designed to target these people because the Western countries believe that these people are the main driving force behind President Vladimir Putin. Now, the one major target is the luxury yachts belonging to these big billionaires, and France sees the first such yacht, and the worth of that yacht, according to the media reports, is over $600 million US. So, the hunt is going on, and there are many agencies searching these vessels throughout the world, and latest media reports say now these tycoons, they have taken action to move these yachts to, from European and the Western areas. They are now moving these luxury yachts to the safer areas, and now according to ship tracking websites, some of these yachts are roaming in very close seas in Sri Lanka and Maldives. That's the latest reports indicate.
Well, fascinating. We will continue to look at this current scenario at hand here at Rupavahini News. Thanks, Prasad, as always, for your valuable insight. And with that, let's move on with more local stories. Sharifa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dishan, and thank you very much for that insightful update on the current situation. And this certainly is not only related to Ukraine or Russia, but it is a global issue as well. We continue with more local news updates. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank to provide loan facilities to the Paddy Marketing Board to purchase paddy and to keep them as buffer stocks. The President said that the program should be implemented, targeting to maintain sufficient paddy buffer stocks of the government. The President mentioned this while on an inspection tour of the main office of the Paddy Marketing Board today. The aim of the visit was to look into purchasing paddy in the Maha season, gathering stocks, marketing and maintaining rice stocks in the market without a shortage. The officials informed the President that paddy was not purchased during the time of the previous government, and paddy stocks that can be used for human consumption had been sold at low rates for the private sector, considering those as animal feed. The relationship between the farmer and the Paddy Marketing Board has been distanced due to several reasons, including not getting a fair price for paddy, distribution of commission money among middlemen, conditions imposed to purchase paddy, and not maintaining storage facilities properly. The present government increased the control price of a kilogram of paddy up to 55 rupees, which was less than 35 rupees before 2020. A kilogram of paddy has been increased to 95 rupees by this Maha season. The President instructed to increase paddy stocks of the Paddy Marketing Board up to 400,000 metric tons. It was decided to renovate 35 paddy stores that have been destroyed with the labor on the army. Attention was paid on constructing elephant fences for the security of paddy stores. The President instructed officials not to allow any malpractices. A group of people, including Minister Mahindananda Aluthgamage and President's Chief Advisor Lalit Veeratunga, were present on the occasion.
Well, now in more stories, the UN member countries have now agreed to Sri Lanka's proposal on sustainable nitrogen management at the 5th UN Environmental Summit in Nairobi, Kenya. Well, Brazil, Maldives, Pakistan and Uganda have co-sponsored Sri Lanka's proposal. The UN member countries passed the proposal. It was proposed to minimize nitrogen sources that go to waste by half of 2030 and to establish an interstate coordinating mechanism on nitrogen policies. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has emphasized that heavy nitrogen volumes have polluted many areas in Europe, Asia and America. Environment Minister Mahinda Amaravira and officials also expressed their views. Foreign Affairs Minister Professor G.L. Pires has met Chairman of the Human Rights Commission and Argentina's Permanent Representative Federico Villegas. Minister Ali Sabri and Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Admiral Professor Jayanath Kolomge were present on the occasion.
A special unit was formed and sent down to Sri Lanka to gather evidence, and which has been in operation till quite recently, and its work has been suspended because of the lack of funds. This means that the whole process is going to be extended for an indefinite period, whereby the government of Sri Lanka and the people of Sri Lanka are going to suffer for another decade, if not more, of continuous harassment by the United Nations Human Rights Council and the Tamil diaspora. the people of Sri Lanka and the government of Sri Lanka, in one voice, should ask the United Nations Human Rights Council to suspend indefinitely and forever this harassment. The Sri Lankan government and an independent people that the government could muster will be able to find a mechanism to find a solution, a reconciliation and solution for the problem in Sri Lanka. We urge the people of Sri Lanka to ask the United Nations Human Rights Council to stop this charade and give our people the chance to find reconciliation and peace among themselves. After all, it's us, the Sri Lankan people, who have to live with each other and find the way to live with each other. And it's certainly not the Human Rights Council who can show us the way. Definitely not. We are quite capable of finding peace among ourselves.
Well, Sharifa, the current situation with Russia and Ukraine, as Prasad mentioned, has had a severe economic impact on the global economy. Now, in terms of oil prices as well, we have seen the global oil prices increasing.
Exactly, Dishant. So this is not just related only to our country, but this has become a global crisis and it's a global concern as well. So taking a look at more updates on the story, California, already paying record prices for motor fuel, is set to shell out even more, with the Golden State more exposed to surging oil prices than the rest of the country in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Diesel prices at the pump rose to a record high $5 a gallon yesterday. California's gasoline also rose to a fresh record of $4.94 a gallon, while San Francisco prices topped $5. Meanwhile, high fuel prices continue to drive gains in inflation, which has become a liability for the Biden administration. Though Russia accounts for a small percentage of California's crude supply, companies like Marathon Petroleum, Chevron Corporation and Valero Energy Corporation will need to find alternatives, as most U.S. refiners have turned away from Russian oil. California is geographically isolated from the bulk of U.S. oil production east of the Rockies. Domestic waterborne supplies are limited by laws that require expensive U.S. flagships to transport it, often through the Panama Canal. As a result, West Coast refiners have been some of the largest recipients of Russian oil in the U.S. for more than a decade.
Meanwhile, the central bank says that a stricter monetary policy should be followed to create financial stability in the country. Now, during a media briefing today, Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Kabral said that the government was requested to take several speedy steps, including increasing the standing interest rates.
We have brought it up as an 8-point package. One is to introduce measures to discourage non-essential and non-urgent imports based on the previous recommendations made by the central bank. We still see a large amount of items which are imported into the country which cannot be considered to be essential. And at the same time, we don't see any dearth of those items in the supermarkets either. Those items are freely available, and when it comes to certain items which are considered essential, there are shortages that we are experiencing. So that seems a dichotomy that we need to address, and we have requested the government to take certain measures to discourage some of those imports. There would be a greater resource availability for the essential items as well. Now that could be seen as a rather unpopular move, but we have in the last year experienced and seen a large increase in our non-essential items as well. If you do an assessment of the imports of Sri Lanka, you would find that there have been ample imports of many of those items. The second is increasing fuel prices and electricity tariffs immediately to reflect the cost. Now this again may be seen as an unpopular measure by the government, but nevertheless we are calling for it because we know that you cannot go on over a long period of time unless an adjustment is made. You know, in the context of any trade, even you will find that if there is a purchase price of 100 rupees, you cannot continue to sell at 60 rupees. You will find that it is not possible to continue business, and if that is being supported by banks, the banks also will face certain liquidity issues if you continue that. So therefore, we have earnestly asked the government to revise the fuel prices and electricity tariffs in order to ensure that there would be stability as well. Third is to incentivize foreign remittances, because we know that there are various measures being adopted by various institutions, not official institutions, but various practices are being put together by various parties to destabilize the situation. But we are asking the government to have a two-pronged attack. One is to ensure that there is a greater support as well as incentives, and at the same time cracking down on the hawala type of transactions, so that those illegal transactions are also not able to practice in the way that they have done in the past. Fourth, we have requested the government to implement certain energy conservation measures whilst accelerating the move towards renewable energy as well. Renewable energy has been spoken of for some time, and I believe it's time for us to earnestly look into those practices to see that there is a medium to longer term adjustment in the way that we generate power as well. We also want to see increasing of government revenue through suitable taxes without it being a one-off only. It's something that we have been talking of for some time. We have recommended to the government that there should be steady increase in certain taxes in order to ensure that there is a greater reliance on tax income and not to rely on borrowing alone. So that's something that we believe should be looked at closely, and we have recommended that as well. And we have also asked for the mobilizing of foreign financing and non-debt forex inflows. We are happy to see that there have been certain efforts being taken to encourage that, because we need to ensure that our reliance on international sovereign bonds is reduced. Seventh, we want to see the government monetizing certain non-strategic and underutilized assets. There are quite a number of those, and those have been now listed out by the UDA, and we are hopeful that those also would be looked at closely in order to ensure that those could be monetized, and if those could be monetized by way of foreign inflows, that would be an additional bonus, and we are recommending to government that that also be looked at as a very serious option. And lastly, and the eighth, is to postpone some non-essential and non-urgent capital projects or tone down some of those so that there would be an opportunity of certain savings. And that could be done in order to ensure that there is a greater amount of savings and the amount of borrowings that we need to do would be reduced. So it's a comprehensive policy package. We are hopeful that it will have the support of the government as well as of the people. It is important that the people also appreciate that certain changes that are being made in these are to benefit them in the long term as well. Those may be seen as being tough in the short term, but in the context of a recovery, we may need to look at those also as an important part of the overall strategies that we have to implement.
Well, we do take a look at more local news updates. Colombo Port City Economic Commission says that there is no possibility in the Port City for money laundering. This was disclosed during a media briefing at the President's Media Center today on the Port City and the future economy. Acting Director General of the Colombo Port City Economic Commission, Priyath Bandhu Vikrama, said that the port city belongs to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's laws are implemented at the port city. There are special regulations to manage the city, but those are also implemented through the Commission. The Commission is responsible for the Sri Lanka government. It is responsible for the President and to the Parliament through the President. All regulations will be passed by Parliament. The port city does not belong to China. It is a wrong opinion which says it belongs to China. Investment are being made from all regions of the world, including India, Middle East, Europe and Asia. This is not a place which meets geographical needs of anyone. This has been totally based on commercial objectives. Only trade will take place. Although China is an investor, the lands are given through an agreement with the Commission.
දේශපාලනික අවශ්‍යතාවයන් කළමනාකරණය කරන තැනක් නෙමෙයි. මේක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වාණිජ අරමුණක් මත පදනම් වෙලා ස්ථාපනය කරලා තියෙන තැනක්. මේකෙ සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ වෙළඳාම විතරයි. විශේෂ ප්‍රමුඛතාවයක් කිසිම කෙනෙකුට නැහැ. මේ ආයෝජකයා චීන ආයෝජකයෙක් වුණාට ඒ ඉඩම් තව කෙනෙකුට දෙනකොට ගිවිසුමත් සංකරන්නේ කොමිෂන් සභාව. ඒ ආයෝජකයාට කිසිම මේකක් නැහැ ගිවිසුම සම්බන්ධයෙන්.
මුදල් විශුද්ධ කරන පනත රටේ මූල්‍ය විනය
President's
පිළිබඳව
media
ප්‍රශ්න
spokesman Kingsley Raghava asked whether there are examples in the world where the economy was grown through such newly built cities.
දුබායි සිංගප්පූර් කියන රටවල් දෙක දැන් මේ රටවල් දෙක
Acting Director General of Colombo Port City Economic Commission Priyat Bandavikrama said that Dubai and Singapore have economically developed based on such financial centres. Apart from that, India is successfully experimenting it. Financial regulations are being prepared with the assistance of international consultancy services. Facilities are given for transactions within those. However, money cannot be brought to Sri Lanka from an unknown place. Arbitration centres and special courts are being built with state patronage at present to solve problems and issues. Money laundering cannot be done when the relevant levels are reached.
බේරුම් කරන එක ඒ වගේම ගැටලු වුණාම ඒවා විසඳගන්න බේරුම් කරන මධ්‍යස්ථාන විශේෂ උසාවි ඒ ඔක්කොමත් මේ වෙනකොට රාජ්‍ය පැත්තෙන් අනුග්‍රහය ලැබිලා හැදෙමින් පවතිනවා. එතකොට මේ සියල්ල මේ මට්ටමට ආවට පස්සේ මුදල් විශුද්ධීකරණය වගේ දෙයක් කරන්න බෑ කිව්වේ.
Mr. Salia Vikramasuri expressed his views about the benefits to Sri Lankans through the Port City project. Mr. Salia Vikramasuri said that according to the Business Act in the Port City, employees are paid by dollars. If a Sri Lankan gets employed, he will get the salary in US dollars, which is a major benefit.
Meanwhile, Vimal Veeravansa and Udaygama Pilla, who were removed from their ministerial portfolios yesterday, held a media briefing in Colombo today. Now, a group of people, including Minister Vasudeva Nanakara, took part in the briefing. Parliamentarian Vimal Veeravansa said that he committed himself to the maximal level in connection with his subject, which is industries, during the past period. Minister Udaygama Pilla also committed himself. He said that they were happy about their performance. However, he said they were not surprised about the decision to remove them from their posts. Minister Vasudeva Nanakara said that they will not join the opposition. He said that the support of the people should be obtained from their program to be implemented in the country. Parliamentarian Udaygama Pilla said that the government and the country have been told in writing about the solution to the crisis and they wish to see that implemented whether they are in the government or not. The next step will be decided at the party leaders' meeting since it cannot be announced as 11 parties are working together.
In the meantime, opposition political parties expressed their views about the activities of 11 parties, including Vimal Veeravansa and Udaygama Pilla. JVP leader Anura Kumara Disanayake said that they are not the solution but creators of the crisis. He said that they do not think people will do the same mistake again.
Now, Minister Dilum Awanagama says that making arrangements to remove Vimal Veeravansa and Udaygama Pilla from their ministerial portfolios is a result of a process that they have planned. He mentioned this during a media briefing of the Sri Lanka Padujana Peramuna. Minister Dilum Awanagama said that there are places where the government can be criticized as a state minister in the cabinet. There are group meetings and cabinet meetings. People like Joseph Stalin solve their problems by meeting Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. There are no leaders who cannot be approached to solve problems. The government should not be attacked while holding ministerial portfolios. If it had to be done, they should have resigned because it is more ethical. When they do so without resigning, the decision to remove has to be taken. The President has taken a strict decision when the ministers had problems. They were removed. Arundhika Fernando was removed until the inquiry was over. They are members of the Padujana Peramuna, but they have not attacked the government. The group should be supported to solve when there are problems.
In the meantime, an island-wide series of programs have been organized from the 8th in connection with the International Women's Day. State Minister P.L. Nishantha mentioned this during a media briefing today at the Government Information Department. State Minister P.L. Nishantha said that a series of programs have been organized by the ministry which will commence on the 8th and 9th of March at the BMICH under the patronage of the President and the Prime Minister. It will conclude on the 7th of April in Monaragala. The Women's Day is not only limited to women, but attention should also be paid on children. He said that necessary steps have been taken together with London Schools of Education to allow students in all schools of the country to follow 10 languages under Vibhasha program, which will be launched by the President and the Prime Minister. Dialogue sponsors the Women's Day celebration. A token was offered symbolizing the event at the State Ministry at Battaramulla, Setsiripaya. A group of people, including Secretary to the State Ministry, Kumari Jayasekara, were present on the occasion.
Well, now Dr. G. Vijayasuriya says a considerable number of COVID patients are reported daily. Therefore, he said that it is essential to follow health guidelines and to get the booster vaccine dose.
Nowadays, we can notice that reporting of the COVID-19 is to a certain extent coming down, but still we can't relax because every day that is still reporting below 1,000 cases, and also there are around 20 cases deaths reporting. So we are advised to adhere to the health guidelines, and at the same time we are advised to take the booster dose. That vaccines are available in Sri Lanka. So everybody who are not taken their booster dose, they are responsible to take that booster dose. In the same time, I am advising to all the workplace, private and government officers, in their workplace staff, they can get their vaccine from the nearby hospital. If you are having the workplace and they are having a staff who are not taken that third dose, they can inform that they are close by hospital, that especially above base hospital, then their staff come to that workplace and they are giving the free of charge that vaccine. So I kindly request all the government places and private places to vaccine about your staff, otherwise that will be harmful to the society. In the same time, we are hope to start school in the next week, most probably that after the 5th of the March that schools are supposed to open, so that the public responsibility is to get the vaccine and avoid the unnecessary gathering and what is called that trade union action and other things. That will be very much benefit for the prevention of this disease. Again, that please don't get relaxed because of that the cases are little bit of going down. That further that in the coming New Year time and other period, people has to stay very carefully and prevent the unnecessary gathering.
Well, we move on to more local news updates, and there's also the report on the clash between two groups of students at Raghava Medical Faculty hostel premises has been handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The President appointed a committee chaired by Minister Keheliya Ramukwala to prepare a report on the clash which took place in the night of the 1st of February. Ministers Mahindananda Awanagama and Ramesh Pathirana are the other members of the committee. The report said that the clash had been a result of an irresponsible activity of 3rd and 4th year students, but not an intentional or planned activity. According to the observations of the report, the students connected to the incident have been arrested, produced before court and bailed out since they have accepted to have engaged in some activity. The committee has recommended to take action on the vehicle belonging to the Coconut Development Authority by the state organization and to ensure security of the entire university system to prevent the entry of external parties inside hostel premises. The committee has decided that former State Minister Arundhati Fernando not guilty considering all those aspects. This has been mentioned in a statement issued by the President's Media Division. Well, that's it on the news for you tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a splendid day ahead until we meet you again the very next day at the same time.